And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Davis Haines, performing artist and songwriter who had a near-death experience due to being run over by a truck. Davis, thanks for joining me today and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, Davis, let's start on the day you got run over and go from there.
All right. So the day was July 11th, 2011, 7/11/11. And I was living in Chicago. I had dropped out of college because it was a difficult time for me. I was feeling a lot of pain and longing to be with my family, my twin brother, specifically my identical twin brother who lived in Chicago. So I left school, what I thought was temporarily, to go live with him. And we were in a band, and we were artists, and we were doing comedy, and we were performing, doing theater, making music, just kind of constantly doing things, writing poetry. We had just started working through this book called The Artist's Way. We were really excited about our path as artists. That's what we spent our time doing. And 2 weeks prior to this was our 21st birthday, and our parents had decided on that day to cut us off financially because we had both left school. We were deciding we wanted to be artists, and they said, "Great, good luck. We love you, but good luck." So we were feeling very free. And we would just spend our time making things, writing music, devising plays, anything we could think to do. So on that particular day, we were riding our bikes around Chicago. We went to the lake, and if you know Chicago in the summer, it's one of the best places in the country to be. It's a beach town. So we went to the beach. We were reading Hafiz poetry and talking about, we had just seen The Holy Mountain. If you know Alejandro Jodorowsky's The Holy Mountain, we were talking about that movie we had watched, and we were going to see a concert in Millennium Park. They always did free concerts. So I'm heading home on my bike, and my brother speeds off ahead. My best friend at the time speeds off ahead, and I'm left by myself because I grabbed a falafel sandwich, threw it in my backpack, and pulled up next to a giant Mack truck on my left and some parked cars on my right. And I remember thinking, I feel really close. Like, this truck is really close to me, and I'm not wearing a helmet, and all I have is like a David Bowie tank top on and some shorts and a backpack. And I'm just looking at this truck thinking, he's really close to me, but I know this intersection. It's Clark and Diversey, where Broadway starts, for those people who know Chicago. It's a five-way intersection, and I figure, well, he's going to go ahead. It looks like he's trying to head towards Broadway. I'll let him go, and then I'll slip behind him and catch back on the bike trail on Clark. The light turns green, and instead of that happening, he ends up merging into me, and I went under his back right tires. I woke up on the street a few minutes later, and I looked in at my arm. I don't know if you can see the scar there, but there was a rock in my arm, and I remember thinking, that looks bad. And all these people are standing over me, and it was almost cinematic, sort of like they do in the movies, where they're all staring at me, and I'm thinking, wow, something really bad must have happened. I don't remember the impact, but I remember like a moment. I remember a moment where everything changed. And as I'm lying on the ground, I'm still very much in my body, very lucid, but not scared. I was just very like calm, just sort of accepting this experience as it's happening, sort of out of this with like a curiosity almost. I actually found out later. Here's a fun detail. I found out later that my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, but my girlfriend at the time had a friend who managed a restaurant nearby. She had seen all the commotion. This is a very busy intersection, and this is about 5 or 6 p.m. on a Monday. So rush hour traffic, a lot of people out here because I'm in the middle of the intersection. I'm causing a big disruption. She had come out of the restaurant to see what was happening and had seen me try to stand up, but I could not because I had shattered my pelvis. The truck had broken my pelvis in 7 places. My femur was in half, broken in half, and my fibula on my left leg was also broken. So there was no chance I was going to stand up. She saw me try. I don't remember doing that, but I believe it because I didn't feel anything. So I thought of, it's kind of that strange thing where you go through something like that and you think, I'm fine. So I was clearly in a bad state. This guy saw the truck landing back on Earth. He didn't see me get hit, but he saw that the truck, something had happened. And this is a big mail delivery truck. It's not an 18-wheeler, but it's a very large trailer truck. The guy saw it happen. He had just gotten his glasses adjusted at a glasses shop right nearby. He left his motorcycle running, threw his kickstand down, and ran to me. And he knew he had to save me. And there was actually two people trying to pull me off the street, which would have killed me. And so he ran over to them and he said, "Stop moving him. I'm a firefighter. I know what I'm doing. Stop moving him." And he cleared the way and he ran over to me. And I remember he grabbed my head and I remember looking at him and just saying, "Thank you," because at this point I was bleeding out. My lungs had collapsed as well. So I didn't have much capacity, but I am shockingly still very lucid. The one way you could think about it is I'm sure you've heard when people are like trapped between an object and like a tree, like a car hits them or something, they're like very alert and awake, and you have to be careful not to, you have to be careful with that situation. If the car were to back away and all that stuff, right? I was in that kind of situation, and I knew this guy was there to save me. It was so clear, and I just was so grateful because he kept looking at me in the eyes, and they actually say that eye contact can be a tether to earth if somebody is like looking at you. That's why they kind of do the stay with me thing. And he was doing that. He was saying, "Stay with me." And he said he was watching the light go out of my eyes at that time, but he was able to bring me back. And so I was still very much there. The police end up coming and I give them my mom's cell phone number, my brother's cell phone number, my address. I'm very aware and awake during all of this. To I think most people's shock because I was very messed up. And and they eventually put me on an ambulance to take me about 5 minutes away to a level 1 trauma center, which is an incredible miracle that I was that close to a level 1 trauma center. It happened to be 2 blocks from my house, where I lived at the time. I was almost home. When they put me on the ambulance, the guy from the motorcycle who had been there and saved me, essentially, was waving to me saying, "Stay with us, Davis. You're going to make it. Stay with us. I'm going to visit you in the hospital. Just stay with us." He kept saying that over and over, and I remember him saying that. Well, they took me to the hospital, and the last thing I remember, I was very in and out at this time, but the last thing I remember was my identical twin brother running in, crying harder than I've ever seen him cry in my life. And he says, "I love you, Davis." And I said, "I love you too." And he said, "I'm here." And I said, "I'm here too." Because at the time, I had no fear and didn't think I was going anywhere. And I actually really wasn't sure why he was there. Um, but it turns out that he had been sent in to say goodbye. Because the doctors in the emergency room realized that my situation was about as severe as it gets. So I had all those fractures already, but the real issue was they couldn't find the source of the bleeding. So they'd already transfused a ton of blood. Ultimately, I was given 13 units of blood, which is more than an entire human body's worth of blood. And the doctor was an Eastern European woman, an incredible doctor, phenomenal. And she was gonna try to figure out if she could find the source of the bleeding. And the way that she was gonna have to do that was to basically do like an emergency, just cut me open and hope, and pray that she would find the spot where the bleeding was, so that she could stabilize me and fix it. And she told them when she walked in to tell my brother to say goodbye, she goes, "He's going to die. You need to say goodbye." And she just pointed to him because it was just all intuition. She's just going for it. So they put me in a coma and she opens me up. And by some unbelievable miracle, she was able to find the bleeding. But before she was able to find the bleeding, I died. My experience on the other side was unbelievable. it was, I get chills even already just thinking about it, because the most incredible experience that I've had in my life. And it's funny to say that, because it was the afterlife. It wasn't this life. It was something like I had never felt, and yet it was so unbelievably familiar. It was like going home. It was like going back. It's like the end of the movie when all the stories resolve. It's like that perfect place, that unbelievable or perfection of the infinite space. And my experience was that it was space. I went to space. I saw everything as as stars and stardust, and as like the tiniest little micro, smaller than a microorganism, all of that stuff. We were all just, everything was just these tiny little like sparkling, glowing atoms of love. It was just pure and an unbelievable love, and I felt so held. I've heard it described. PMH Atwater describes it as being in the womb of creation. Sometimes I like to describe it as like sinking into a warm tub after a long, cold day in the snow. It was like, and if you've had that experience, your body goes wild. It's to this day, it's one of the greatest feelings on earth. For me, when I get to sink into a tub like that, and it was like that, but times 10,000, and I felt like I was part of everything. I wasn't in a body. I don't know what I was. I was somehow, my consciousness continued on somehow, and I was there experiencing it, and it was just pure love, pure peace, pure bliss, infinite knowledge and understanding and forgiveness and all of that stuff. It was like, it was being with God. It was being with what people have been saying for years they describe as God. I was like, oh my God, I'm here. I'm with you. We are everything. Everything is, it was unbelievable. And the reason I knew it was something else was because of truly more in contrast to the absence of fear. I wasn't afraid of anything. There was nothing to be afraid of. It was like everything that I was afraid of was back on Earth. And then being on the other side, there was no fear. There was nothing to be afraid of. It was like a reunion, a homecoming, a reuniting with the infinite everything that is love. It was realizing that I was as connected as anything and everything else in this vast and incredible, unknowable universe. And all the fear stuff was back on Earth. All the making sure I got rent, getting cut off financially from my parents, all the regrets that I had that keep me up at night, all that stuff, all the getting a cold and stubbing your toe or getting a speeding ticket, any of that stuff that happens here on Earth, it was gone. That's Earth stuff. The infinite was pure peace. And it was like God was saying, Davis, it's just love. It's just love. That's all it is. That's all this is just love. And that knowledge went directly into my heart. All of that stardust that makes my heart up and makes who I am up, it was like the knowledge was deeply embedded in that, and it has never changed. So then after I was stabilized, I'm back in my body, but I'm not consciously in my body, because they kept me in a coma for 5 days. And people often say, how do you know you weren't just hallucinating in your coma? And there's a big difference between the experience of consciousness continuing through death than the experience of a medically induced coma's unconscious experience. I'll just put it that way. The unconscious experience is um, it's unknowable in a different way. It's just a nothingness. There isn't any of that sparkling anything. It was just, there's just nothing. It's almost impossible to describe in the same in a different way, but it doesn't have the clarity that the death experience has. The death experience is like, I'll never forget, and I can't forget. I was given the opportunity to remember, not to learn, because I don't think we learn anything about God. I think we only remember things about God. And so I was given the chance to remember that. But then in the coma, it was just a blank experience. And throughout the coma, they are actually trying to fix me. And I have a memory from my coma, which is kind of a funny story, but they had to, once they stabilized me, Everyone was worried, they're like, is he gonna, the first question they asked said, is he gonna walk again? That was the first question they asked the doctor. And she said, we don't know if he's gonna make it. So we're not even worried about that. But I was centimeters from paralysis. The bottom two vertebrae of the spine, which you probably know as a chiropractor. I don't know what those are called, but the wings were chipped. So I was like literally centimeters from paralysis, which is incredible. But they had to put a plate in my pelvis to help that heal back and without any issues. They had to reset my femur as well, and the femur is the biggest bone in the body, right? And so when they were resetting my femur, and I was an athletic 21-year-old guy, and so they had to like, there's like a doctor who has to like hold my leg stable so that they can put a rod in it. And I woke up for that briefly for that moment. I didn't feel any pain, but I just woke up and saw it and then went back into the coma, which is another thing I'll never forget. But that was a coma experience that I had. While all this is happening, my family is going through an incredibly traumatic experience, assuming that I'm going to die. And actually, most of my family couldn't get up to Chicago from Alabama until the next day. So a lot of that stabilization stuff happened before they even got there. They assumed they were coming to essentially identify a body, if anything. They did not think I was going to make it. The situation was extremely dire. And of course, they were so relieved when they saved my life. And they actually saw the doctor, the Eastern European woman, the incredible doctor who saved my life, getting on the elevator one day, a couple days later, and they said, "Thank you so much for saving our son." And she said, "I didn't save him. God did. I just moved my hands," which is incredible to me because this is not the type of person to say that. I think they said that they gave me a 1% chance because science can't justify 0%. She literally was like, there's just no, I didn't do anything except move my hands and somehow I found the bleeding, but there's no explanation other than that. Also, meanwhile, I'm in this 5-day coma, and my twin brother is living my personal nightmare, which is the thought of losing my twin brother. So he's having this unbelievable experience of grief and mourning, and then jubilation and celebration as I survive. And 5 days after the accident happens, I finally wake up from my coma. And I remember feeling like I wanted to tell everybody about that love that I'd experienced. I wanted to shout it from the rooftops. I wanted to let every single person in the world know that we're going to be okay. Like there's nothing to be afraid of. All that stuff is here, and over there, it's like it's bliss. We're home. It's like coming home after a long trip. We're just that's all it is. We're just this is a journey, and we're going back, and it's all good. It's all good. You don't have to do anything to get there except to love. That's all you have to do is just be loving and kind and all of that stuff, and you're going to be fine. But of course, I was on unbelievable amounts of medicine, pain medication. I mean, I'm like, I had IVs in every vein, it felt like, and I was non-weight bearing. I couldn't move, and I was extremely, I'm starting to atrophy, at this point already. And I was extremely weak. So I couldn't say all that. Plus, my family at the time, because they went through so much, they were not ready to hear that, not interested in hearing that. But somewhere deep in their hearts, I think they could receive some of what I said, because one of the things I said when I woke up was I saw an angel on Clark Street. I got chills just saying that because I don't remember saying that. I was told that I said that. One of the challenges of an accident like I had, Dr. Bruce Grayson, who's done a ton of studying on NDEs, talks about this. When you're given a ton of medicine, in a situation like that, those folks, people like me, have a harder time remembering or having the memory, forming the memory in our brains because there was a lot of mind altering stuff going on. So I don't have the same sort of visual journey that a lot of NDEers do, but the love was so visceral, and I will never forget that. And I don't even remember saying that I saw an angel on Clark Street, but I know that I did because there were many people in the room who heard me say that. And it was fascinating to them because I didn't talk about angels. I wasn't really an angel guy. I had no context for angels. I saw them hanging on the Christmas tree. I had like heard about them in church growing up. Didn't really have a context for it. Um, that was pretty much it. I don't know why I said that, except that I knew that I meant it. And and actually, what I meant was that guy from the motorcycle. I felt like he was there to save me. It was so obvious that he had been there. He was my savior. He was there to protect me and to keep me alive, and he did. Um, a couple days go by, and I'm still in the ICU, and and meanwhile, like while this is happening, there's a guy a couple rooms down, and he's moaning like crazy. And I asked the nurse at one point, I'm like, what happened to that guy? And she was like, he was shot, and he's not doing very well. And I said, will you please tell him that he's going to be okay? Tell him that he is loved. Like I was like trying and desperately, and I think she did that like, okay, honey, that kind of thing. But I just was trying to tell anybody. Well, a few days go by, and somebody comes to see me at the hospital, and I had an incredible vigil of people who would come to visit me, but nobody knew who this guy was. They had never met him before, but he kept saying, I was with Davis at the accident. I was with him, and I need to see him. I told him I would come see him. And my mom knew. My mom knew who it was. She knew it was the angel. So he comes in, and he doesn't look like what you might be picturing in your mind as an angel. This dude is he's got big biceps, bandana on his head. I mean, he's a motorcyclist, right? And he comes in and he grabs my hand and he's like, Davis, I'm so glad you made it. We're crying, we're laughing. I'm looking at his eyes, and it's the same connection that we had on the street. And I knew, I was like, this is my guy. He saved my life. I'm completely indebted to this man. And we're talking about how we're going to get together. We're going to play music, all this stuff. And I finally say, what is your name? And of all names in the entire world that his name could have been, his name was Art. So I say that Art saved my life. And and I mean, I could burst into tears even saying that, because I had been an artist my entire life. And to be given that person, I mean, his name could have been Marcus, it could have been Jeff, but it was Art. And he's a real person. And that floored me. Honestly, I couldn't tell this story for years because it was too intense. The details were too intense to share for a long time for me. But Art had saved my life. This man who was in my phone and calls me every year on New Year's. He saved my life. And it's incredible because often, people talk about angels now. I've learned more about angels and things like that, having talked to people about it. And I know that angels and spirits and things like that can work through people. I believe that he was whispered to go save that boy, go save him, because that's what he said. He said, I knew immediately I had to save your life. And he knew, because he wasn't thinking. When he came over to me and found me in that state, he actually lied. He's not a firefighter. He's a mover. He moves people in and out of their homes. Like that's what he does for a living. But he knew that he needed to make sure that anyone was there would trust him with the job of saving my life. He wasn't the first one on the scene. But he was the authority on the scene, and that's how he decided to assert his authority. He told me that actually years later, and that to me adds such a layer to it, because he was clearly there to save me. So I had been given this message from the universe. I had been given this message from God. It was love, and it was art. And so I put it together and developed basically what my mission, my mission here on earth is to spread love through art. And that is what I have been doing ever since. My recovery was long. I was in the hospital for a month, two weeks in Chicago, and then I was flown down here to Birmingham to rehab at UAB Hospital, where I was born. And because my recovery was going to be long, and I was in a situation where I could be moved so that I could live at my mom's and recover there instead of living in a essentially a bachelor pad, with a bunch of college students. Um, so it was a better deal. I came down here. I was in a wheelchair. I was in rehab for 2 weeks here. I was in the wheelchair for 3 months total. I was on a walker for 6 weeks. I had to learn how to walk again, and I was on a cane for 9 months. And that timeline may seem long, but it's actually, according to all of my doctors, miraculously short for what I had been through. I was extremely injured. And so the healing was rapid. I got off Oxycontin, which is a famously addictive drug, um, 6 weeks before I was supposed to. I just stopped, and I had no side effects because um, I was motivated. Like, this energy of love was coursing through me, and it was almost as if it was healing me. In fact, I didn't feel pain until the second week of my hospital stay. So a week after the accident. That's how long it took. So from the minute the accident happened, obviously, well, actually, no, it might have been 2 weeks because I was in a coma for 5 days. So it was a week of being awake before I was like really feeling pain. So and the pain was actually, I realized I've never said that out loud, and I realized that that's not true. It was a week because it was 2 days after the coma when I really started feeling it. I was given this dilaudid button. It's called, they call it the happy button, and you're only allowed to get like every 7 minutes. And so once the pain hit, I would press that thing all the time because the pelvis is the most painful bone in the body to break. Mine was broken 7 times, so I was in severe pain, but it took a while for it to come in. And what was incredible to me too was I felt like everyone who prayed for me or sent me their love, positive energy, their thoughts, whatever their version of praying is, it was like they were taking bits of my pain away and shouldering it themselves. Sort of like how we help a friend who's injured by carrying their pack. It was like they were all taking a little bit of my pain away. I think that's why my pain was so manageable. Eventually, it was mine to carry, and so I did. But as I'm trying to integrate this experience, this intense near-death experience, but really just like an experience with the universe, with God, with love, and finding that art would be my path. I did everything I could to try to figure out how to do that. So I started. I took a painting class. I started teaching myself guitar eventually. I wrote a ton of poetry. I got DVDs from the library and watched every like art film and Criterion collection, and I read novels, and I just absorbed as much as I could. I'd walk up to artists if I ever met them and say, "Hi, my name is Davis. I'm supposed to meet you." Which is a kind of a strange way to interact with people, but they often received me with that same love, and I felt like it was my turn to be like a patron saint to them and to keep inspiring them to keep moving. And so I've just kept doing that. And that was 14 years ago, and I have devoted my life to it. That's what I do. I work with kids. I work with people with disabilities. I'm currently back in college, studying to become a certified music therapist because I really want to do that. I've been doing it, working with those populations, but this program I'm in is at the same university where that hospital was. And so part of my training will be working with patients who are going through exactly what I went through. And I'm really looking forward to doing that. And that's part of why I'm doing it. But yeah, that was my clear message from the universe. And I've just been doing my best to live it out.
After your experience, did you notice that you had any new abilities or gifts that could be considered psychic?
That's a great question. The short answer is no, not psychic abilities. And and sometimes I actually am grateful for that because I have a beautiful relationship with the world the way that I experience it, and I'm sorry, like, ignorance is bliss. It's like not watching the news. It's kind of, for me, I like where I'm at with it. But one thing I can tell you is that because I experienced that incredible vibration of love, it has imbued my art with something that I have been able to utilize in sort of like I guess you could say captivating and spellbinding as best as I can. It's if I can tap into that love while I'm playing a lullaby for my children, or if I can tap into that same love and that same truth while I'm acting on stage, performing a role, and just share that truth and to share that love, then that's like there is something there, and that's the feedback. That's the only thing I can get from people is feedback and sort of experiences that they have. But that I've heard that a lot that they feel that when I sing and act and tell stories and things like that. Um, but no like future predictions, no visitors from the other side, none of that stuff.
Have you created art based on your NDE? And what I mean by that is, have you written songs about your NDE or painted elements of it?
Yes, I have. When I was in a funk band in Chicago. I actually Art, my friend and Angel, was the guest of honor at our album release party. But I wrote a verse about my about my NDE. We were kind of a funk and hip hop kind of group, and there were two other vocalists, so there wasn't much real estate. So I took this one track that we wrote together called "Keep My Cool," and I put in the entirety of my NDE into one verse. And I knew it was like my last chance to, or at that time, to like share it. And so there's a ton of stuff about the NDE in that particular verse, and that's on my website if you want to hear it. But I also just in the past couple of years have written some music. When I spoke at IANS this past year, I sang a couple of the tunes that I've written from that experience. And what I find fascinating about creating NDE, the music into the NDE from my near-death experience, is it's almost like, I mean, it's just spiritual music, in a way, and art to me is prayer. I think about when I make stuff as prayer. So anytime that I'm connected to the other side through my in my heart, when my heart is feeling that same love, and I make something while that's happening, then it's to me it's like an NDE related thing. But what I think is fascinating about earth and art and the heart is that there's so much pain, and you know the truth is what we're after as artists, right? We're here to reveal deep truths so that people resonate with them and so that we feel more connected. Our job as artists, I think, is to break hearts, um, in that beautiful way that like where the cracks are where the light get in, and and I think the light gets out, right? So we if we can do that, then we're doing it. And so to your point, I've written some stuff sort of explicitly about the NDE, but I've also written stuff that's really just inspired by the experience I had on the other side.
People say the other side is a place of bliss, and this is a place of suffering, right? That would be really interesting to somehow tell that story through art.
Mm,
I would think you've probably considered it in some way.
absolutely. I actually wrote a verse for a song this summer, the last verse of this song that I wrote that I think of sort of like a hymn. And the last line is, I am alive and I've been dead, and all the goodness in between is just broken hearts and broken bread. And that to me kind of says, yeah, so much. And actually, I don't even want to say that I claim that I wrote it because it just it's the kind of stuff that just comes through. Um, but that is like a bit of a mantra for me. I broken hearts and broken bread represents all the pain and the joy that we experience here on earth. So we terrible things happen all the time. Um, a lot of people will look at me and hear my story before they've heard the NDE part. They just hear the facts of being in an accident like I was in, and they can't imagine it. And they don't, they want me almost. They want to be like, I just what you've been through is so unbelievable. And what I always say is, it was the best thing that's ever happened to me. Because once you flip the perspective that this earth experience that we're having it is, like you said, it is suffering, it is challenge, and our goal is to try to learn how to love through those challenges. That is what I believe we're here to do. And so you learn to love the challenges, and they can be so unbelievably challenging. I feel blessed to have had an unbelievably challenging experience so that I can say that with full confidence that there is you can go to the darkest places and there's still love there. And when you can find a way to grow that love within the experience of deep trauma, you realize how valuable those lessons are. So yeah, I think about that a lot, Jeff. How to use art to help people understand that, and that's kind of what I wrote in most of the music that I've been writing lately has been inspired by that. I used to have very simplistic understandings of love and art. I was stumbling. I Integration takes a long time. I know you've talked to a lot of near-death experiencers. It takes a long time. Love used to have a very narrow definition in my mind. Um, when it got blown open, suddenly I was like, I wasn't just thinking about uh, romantic love or the love of family. It was like, how do I bring everything in? How do I bring even my enemies into this? So to use a term, into this fold? How do I learn how to love the DMV? What does that mean? What does it mean to love the DMV? Who loves the DMV? The DMV doesn't even love the DMV, but we can find a way to love into those experiences. And when I learned how to do that, when I could get a smile out of somebody who's going through a tough moment as an employee, um, that's where I learned, oh, okay, there's love everywhere. And I just started trying to bring it in as much as I can, because to me, love is what unites us. Fear is what separates us. It's all that fear, the suffering that we experience here on Earth, that people like over identify with, is what separates us, creates division. But it's the love that unites us. That's what a lot of my music is about. Recognizing that we're having an Earth experience. It's very important that we know we're here on Earth. We are doing this. This is happening. I'm doing it too. We're together. We're not. You're not alone. I'm not alone. We are in this together, right? So to me, it's very important to know that we have the Earth experience. That's what art. You can't spell Earth without art. You can't spell heart without art. I have this little tattoo right here, my little heart art tattoo. To always remember that, like, when I'm making something, when I'm making art of any kind, it's my heart reaching out to yours, and it's really just a namaste. It's the light in me sees the light in you. That's what I think art really does. So helping people remember that they are a divine being of light and love that is loved as well, and that they're having an earth experience is a big part of the journey for me as an artist.
Did you notice, especially immediately after your recovery, that you felt like you loved everybody? Like you'd be walking around the grocery store and you felt love for everybody there?
Yes. It was a very special experience for me. Now I'm a little different in some ways than some indie years, in the sense that I was kind of a lover already. One of the things that my friends used to say was that, like, I was quick to say I love you, um, and I wasn't afraid to say that to my friends or anybody, because I knew love was something profound. I was working on this idea of what love is, before the accident happened, but I also used to claim to be an atheist. Um, I because I was raised in a Christian church, and then I grew up in a very conservative area, Birmingham, Alabama, and so I was frustrated by the way that I saw religion manifested. I even had a pretty fun and unique relationship with Jesus, in the sense that I got to play him in a musical. So I did Godspell in high school, at a professional theater in town, and playing Jesus was incredible because it was my job to try to embody that love. And that's what artists do. That's what actors do, is to do our best to live truthfully as our characters. And so when you're trying to play Jesus, you got to be Jesus. And I tried my best. And it was cool because I realized, I was like, this isn't being Jesus has taught me a lot about Jesus, but it has also revealed a lot about what I experience at churches and things. So I was exploring that stuff, trying to figure out why that was. And so I experimented with the idea of atheism. And I did a lot of trying to poke holes in and figure out, like, why people are different, and I did a lot of rejecting them. But I also had this, like, sort of undercurrent this experience of love. And I kept thinking about love because I worked with people with disabilities. And if you've ever spent time with people with disabilities, then I'm talking about people with Down syndrome or autism or Cornelia de Lange or any of these diagnoses. I spent time with those people, and they taught me how to love as well. The love that I was given when I used to go volunteer at this place in Birmingham called the Exceptional Foundation was unbelievable. They just loved me for who I was. I walked in the door and they just loved me. And I thought that's an unbelievable feeling. I want to be like that. I want to be like those folks. And people often, if just from a visual standpoint, people often project this idea onto people with disabilities that they're miserable because they're not typical. And yet here they are having these joyful experiences and expressing that joy to me and to everyone that they meet. I mean, the minute I met them, they were my lifelong friends. And so I had this idea of love. And so I talked to my atheist friend about that. And he said, well, based on your definition of love, which I described as this thing that happens to us that we have no control over, but that we have access to it. Like when I don't know why I'm falling in love with this girl, or I don't know why I love Indian food, or I don't know why this stuff is happening. It just is, right? It just is. And it just happens to me. I'm not choosing to love that stuff. He was like, well, then you're not an atheist. I was like, okay, I'm a lovist. I just said I'm a lovist, you know? And then when I found the artist way, I was like, well, maybe it's easier to say I'm an artist because I can do my best to. That book is all about channeling sort of the higher power, sort of channeling that idea of love into uh, into our art and as a sense of living and as a sense of prayer. So I was like, I'll just be an artist. And all of that happened before a man named Art saved my life. So then when I came back, the love was so present that grocery store, gas station. I mean, it's like the coolest thing in my life is that I've gotten to work so much with people with disabilities and with young children, inspired deeply by Mr. Rogers, who I think I suspect that he had an NDE because he was very sick as a kid, and he had that same level of love that I experienced as well. You know, I see it in him. I guess you could say I see the love that he pours into his work and into the kids. He knew every soul. You know what I mean? And so yeah, I've had that experience. But life is also hard. You know, as I was recovering in my mom's house, my childhood home, my parents were divorced. My dad became very religious, and my mom was an alcoholic. And so I'm growing up healing, sort of like almost like I felt like I reset the clock and then had like an intense, you know, double speed like rebirth kind of experience. Moved all the way through my life and grew up back in my own childhood home again. Meanwhile, my mom has this dark cloud of alcoholism happening at the same time. So it was a lot. There's a lot of pain in my personal life as I'm also experiencing this love. So yeah, it was almost like I found more love from strangers than I did from the people closest to me, though they were incredibly loving. You know, I could feel it from them too, but it didn't come without challenges. So yeah, and to this day, that same thing that you're describing, that experience of going out in the world and just like seeing people and loving them, it happens all the I love everyone that I see. And if I don't, I'm actively trying to figure out what's blocking me from loving them, because I believe everyone is lovable. And so there's something underneath every ego.
Have you ever thought to yourself, why me? And if so, do you feel like you've come back for some mission?
Yes. The why me experience is actually something that was very familiar to me, even when I was a kid. Um, I had a great childhood, a very privileged, blessed childhood, um, with a big family full of love and fun. And then things started to fall apart. And and I often would ask, why am I so blessed? Why am I so lucky? I mean, I had a lot of like early existential crises, and I even at one point asked, I didn't ask God, but I just like sort of longed for a struggle, because I was like, what is that like? I didn't know what people must be going through, and I longed to know what their experience was. That's why I spent time with people with disabilities. I wanted to know, what's it like to be in a wheelchair. That's what I went to college for the first time, was to be an early childhood special ed teacher, inclusive education teacher. And I longed to know that. And so yeah, at first it was the why me? Why is everything going so well? And then in the midst of my recovery, there's like, why me? Why is everything going completely belly up? Like, why is everything so hard? And of course, when my story happened, when that happened, and I met God, so to speak, and fell into love, into that space that I call love, and was saved by an angel, a man named Art. Of course, I had the why me? Like, it is unbelievable to this day. Even saying it, sometimes I think, who's like, what? How is this even possible? These things can't be true. So yes, I do think all the time, um, why me? And what was the second part of your question?
Do you feel like you have a mission or some sort of, special purpose while you're back? And if so, what is it?
Absolutely. And it is, in fact, I thank God all the time that my mission is so clear, because I know finding purpose is a long journey for so many people. But my purpose is to spread love through art. That is the filter through which I put every choice that I make in my life. If I am going to have a job, it is going to be to do that. And I can very happily say that to this day, that is exactly what I do. I teach young children music. I write music for a local early childhood education program, a literacy program. I teach for that same program. I actually work at a church down the street from me and have learned a lot, something I never thought I would do, but I've learned so much about what it means to live with the love of God in a place that you think you would expect to experience the love of God, but people don't all the time. I've just been following the cosmic breadcrumbs that are in front of me, and one of them led me to this gig, and I've been doing it for 4 years, and it has taught me so much. And I've actually opened my heart a ton to the people of the Christian faith, because to me, it was like about bringing them in. That was a big hang up for me, having been raised that way, rejecting it, not being a Christian, but like wanting to love and understand what people go through. That's been a blessing to me. And then, I want to do that with every religion. I've played at Jewish temples in the past. I was in a kirtan band. I've never gotten to play in a mosque. I'd love to do that. I'd love to work with anybody. That's my goal. My dream is to spread love through art. So, and the incredible gift of that message is how clear it is. So everything that I do is filtered through that. And now, as an aspiring music therapist, it's why I'm doing that. It's because my mission is so clear.
If you had a friend that was grieving over the loss of a loved one, what type of advice would you give?
Hmm. The first thing I would say is feel it. Feel it all, and feel it all the way through. Don't hide from it. Just feel it. Know that they are still with you. I read a beautiful poem recently from a recently deceased poet who said, in some ways, people in death are closer to us than they ever were in life. And that is such a reassurance. And I would say that to them, that the loved one that you've lost is with you in a way that they couldn't be in life. And they don't have any of the baggage or the barriers that life can provide. But in death, that they are with us in a more present and significant way than they ever were here. And then I would say, as you long for them, as you grieve and miss them, remember that they're with you, and continue to love them, and think about them, and to feel into what they might want for you, because we often are our worst uh, critics. We're the ones who beat ourselves up the most. And if we can think about how we treat ourselves based on the way that someone who really loves us would want us to treat ourselves, it can actually be an incredibly healing process to recognize that as that person lives in love, they want us to know that love too. So deep, feel it all, and know that they're with you, and use that knowing that they're with you in love to live in love so that you can continue to spread and deepen your love in your life.
Do you fear death?
I have no fear of death. I have no fear of death. And I do want to say this because I haven't said this before. Um, when NDEers come back and say there's nothing to be afraid of with death, it is not a call to seek death. I would never, ever, ever tell someone to seek death. Just know that it's coming for. I mean, we're all going to get there eventually. It's sort of like we don't have the choice to kill anybody. It's not really that is an unkind and an unloving decision to kill anybody, including ourselves. So I just want to make sure that I say that because it's very important that people know that in death there is love, but it's not our choice when that happens. It death will happen, but and when it does, I do want people to know my experience of it is that there's nothing to be afraid of. And in fact, when you face and confront the reality, the inevitability of mortality, the one thing that you can guarantee is going to happen to you at some point and will happen to everyone at some point, when you recognize that and know that there's nothing to be afraid of, you suddenly stop being afraid of living. And then you get to live in this incredible state of love and do your best to bring that love into your lives. And so no, I'm not afraid of death. And as a result, I'm not afraid of life either.
While you were on the other side, you felt like you were part of everything, right? And
Mhm.
here we're separate. Or what do you think about that?
I have thought about that a lot. You know, it goes back to art and the heart. So the heart tattoo that I have um, was actually a tattoo that my best friend who was with me at the day of the accident, he already had. He had that tattoo before the accident happened, and my twin brother and I both got it since in our own handwriting because of the impact of the what happened to me. And I say that because to me, the heart is where God talks to us, and I use the word God easily, but I know you please replace it with the universe or whatever you feel comfortable with as you're hearing this. It's just a word I've become comfortable using. So when I think about God talking to me in my heart, and I think about the concept of namaste, the God in me sees the God in you, the light in me sees the light in you, then in our separateness, as we're living these separate experiences, because I mean, I'm an identical twin and I am separate from him, but we've also loved each other and we've bridged a gap in a way that I'm so blessed to have the experience of someone that close to me because it revealed to me um, how much you can be one with someone while also maintaining that separation of ego and of self, these bodies, these lives that we wear. So as an artist, I think about how our job is to bridge those gaps, is to connect from heart to heart. When you hear a song and it makes you burst into tears from a sense of recognition, almost like they wrote it for me. You know, that feeling where you're like, this song is about my breakup. This song is about my life. This song is about my sobriety journey or whatever it is, right? If you see a film, you go to a play, you read a poem, anything like that, where it connects you and you realize that you're one with that artist, what you're really hearing is a heart. And you're hearing your own heart in the sense that we are all one. We are all the same. So the earth experience is an experience of separation. And I think loving, uniting, connecting across that separation while we're here so that we can learn how to love even deeper, even in our separation.
As a songwriter, you probably realize that there are a lot of songs about going home. And usually they mean it literally, like going home back to
Hmm.
where you were raised. But have you ever thought about, is there a deeper meaning, like going home the way you went home? And it hits people at a subconscious level?
Absolutely. I love using the phrasing going home. Um, because that's exactly what it felt like. I mean, that is exactly what it felt like. And not everybody's earth home feels good to go back to. There were many years in the uh I want to say my mom is sober now, thank God, and I love her. She was at my daughter's soccer game this morning, and she is a delight. And I'm so proud of her and her recovery. But there were years where coming home was really, really difficult for me. On my coming home to my Earth home. What I think people idealize and see in movies and often wish they had for themselves is to come home to a loving place. Um, we all have a version of that. Now, there's some people who are houseless, but they experience a home somewhere because they say home is where the heart is. And that's my experience of the afterlife is that our hearts, the experience we have when we feel love, when we feel that ability to fully just relax and sort of lay our troubles down for just a little bit. And that feeling of home, I think that's the metaphor when a lot of people talk about coming home. That's what the other side is. That's what it is. Um, that's why I think that metaphor is so apt. It's also a perfect way to describe Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. That's what I mean. I'm home. I moved back to Birmingham. I live in Birmingham. I'm doing exactly what I used to do, but I'm coming back changed. And that's I think why we come to Earth. We come here to change, to evolve, and to grow our understanding of love, so that when we go back, we're better for it. We're better at loving, and we focus on the lives that we were given. I think we all are in situations that we are meant to be in. And that might be hard to land on somebody who's going through a really challenging experience right now. And I just want to send those people deep peace, love, and courage. Because courage is acting not in spite of fear, but in the face of fear. There's a lot of fear in this world, but if you continue on through the life that you have, the one that's right here, then you're doing it. And so yes, I do think that's a beautiful metaphor for what this whole thing really is.
Well, where can people go to check out your artwork?
Right now, you can go to my website. You can type davishaines.com. I have an Instagram. It's you can find all that on my website, and maybe I can send it to you, Jeff, and you can put it in the description for people. It's all there. What is out there for now, and I'll just keep putting stuff up there as things come out.
Do you have anything that you're working on that you want people to know about?
I always have a bunch of projects and things stewing, but I'm in college and I am occupied deeply in my collegiate studies. But I am hoping to release some new music that I've written, and I have to say this. This has been an important part of my journey. There is an earth narrative around releasing things where it feels like there's like you got to get it out there. People tell me all the time, you got to get it out there. And what I say back is I'm like, I think in my head, I don't say this to every stranger that I meet who says that to me, but I often will reiterate to myself, I'm waiting for divine timing. When things work out and there's an opportunity for me to record all this music, I'm ready. I've got a bunch of music that I've almost recorded many times, and for whatever reason, the universe removes that opportunity. COVID happened right before a big recording session. I had to suddenly move out of New York. I had a recording session set up and it didn't happen. I've been almost cast in shows many times. I've almost, like, my band was about to sign with a manager right when we broke up. I've been what I describe now as being protected from being too public in the past. And now I'm just waiting for divine timing. If that opportunity comes and it's time for us to write, I'm ready. I'm literally sitting here ready to do it at any time. But I do have a bunch of stuff out there now. You can find my old band, and you can find my rap, my verse about the NDE there.
If people want to contact you, is there a place for it on your website?
Yes. And I've had people reach out, and I'm happy to talk to them anytime I have the chance.
Before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
You are loved, and you are love. And whatever you can do to open your heart to yourself, to your own experience, to the life that you're living, is literally the greatest, most radical thing you could do while we're here on this earth. If we all did that, we would experience the peace that we seek. Find it in yourself. If you're an artist, or even if you're not an artist, use art as a way to fall back in love with who you are and what you've been through so that we can see that version and so that we might live in a world where everyone is full of love, because truly it is going to be okay. We're all going to be home again one day.
Davis, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.